So I've been wearing Calvin Klein's Eternity since I was in like high school, and we know that Calvin Klein is notorious for releasing summer flankers for CK1 and Eternity, the men's version and the women's version. Here we have this year's 2023's summer flanker. This is called Eternity Reflections. I'm going to be looking at the men's version today. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this brand new limited edition release, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's episode and I tell you about this limited edition fragrance by Calvin Klein, it's called Eternity Reflections. I'll give you my thoughts on the notes, the smell, the performance, comparisons, longevity, performance, all that good stuff. I do want to start things off, however, by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon and click where it says enable all notifications. This way, whenever I do upload future videos to the channel, it will get sent directly to your feed. You never have to worry about missing any of my future uploads. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or if you took something of value from today's episode. So I was looking online and it has a pretty interesting note breakdown, albeit a little simple. It does have absinthe, chocolate, sandalwood, and oak moss. That's it. Now, of course, when I think about Calvin Klein's Eternity, I think about lavender. Lavender was a very common note in the original Eternity, and I have very fond memories when it comes to that fragrance, and I've gone through several bottles of it. I even purchased a new one last year or 2 years ago or something like that. And of course, I purchased other summer flankers for Eternity, but here's one that seems to go on the herbal, green, absinthe, artemisia, wormwood side of things with chocolate, which is very unusual pairing, a bit peculiar if I don't say so myself. In any case, I'll tell you what vibe I get from this fragrance. I'll also tell you if I could make any connections to other popular designer or niche fragrances. But let's go ahead and start things off with a quick look at the presentation. So right in the opening of this fragrance, you do get something very bright, vivid, and actually I thought it was a little fruity, which is really interesting because I purchased this one from Macy's, and as soon as I sprayed it on, I said, oh wow, this smells a little fruity, and the sales associate agreed with me. So I'm like, okay, I wonder what's in here, if it's like a red currant or red berries or like, you know, cranberry or I didn't know what was in here, right? But I just thought I smelled something that was on the fruity side of things. And then I looked at the note breakdown and I was like, oh, okay, there's chocolate, right? So I was getting something a bit on the sweet sort of fructose, saccharin side of things. I thought it was like a fruity ingredient. It's actually chocolate, which has a very different aroma. So now here's the thing. Chocolate has a very vivid smell. I know chocolate when I smell it, especially if you're thinking about, there's a fragrance called Chocolate Man. I forget the brand that releases it, but I'm very familiar with the way that that smells. There's Chocolate Queen by Navitus Parfum. There's so many chocolate-based fragrances on the market. Chocolate Greedy by Montal. I know what chocolate smells like. The chocolate in this fragrance, however, reminds me of kind of like a pseudo chocolate. And the reason I say that is because there was another fragrance a while ago, it was released, L1212 Noir by Lacoste, right? Under the ownership of Procter & Gamble. And that fragrance has chocolate in the note breakdown. And when I smell it now, I'm like, it doesn't really smell like chocolate, right? It has kind of like this nondescript generic sweetness about it. And that's where I feel like if they toyed around with a note breakdown and they added like cranberry or red currant or red fruits or assorted berries or whatever fantasy note or accord in the note breakdown, it would have been convincing because I just sort of smelled something red and fruity. And I think maybe I say that because it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Polo Red. Not 100%, just kind of in the same vibe. You can wear it for the same situations, the same scenarios and occasions. I mean, different fragrances at the end of the day, of course, but it kind of gives me like this sweet, fruity vibe to it. Now, in terms of the absinthe that's in here, look, wormwood is very bright, very bold, astringent, kind of sharp as well. If you've tried something like absinthe by Nasomato, you have a pretty good idea of what it smells like. And I'm not getting that. I am getting something herbal in here, right? So I'm not trying to discount it completely. I do feel like there is something green, something herbal in here, adding a sort of charisma to the fragrance, and perhaps it joins forces with the oak moss later on in the dry down of this fragrance. The sandalwood used in here is very synthetic, so you're not going to get anything special from that, but it just kind of smells like this slightly sweet, slightly warm, slightly herbal combination of ingredients that if you weren't looking at a note breakdown, you'd never guess it. And I say that because 100% of what's happening in this fragrance is synthetic. It's a 100% synthetic fragrance. It has this sort of nondescript personality about it, but it has an appealing character about it. You know, it's hard to describe. I wouldn't say it's my favorite fragrance. I've tried a lot of Calvin Klein fragrances throughout the years, and there are some that I really ended up enjoying, even though I guess commercially they weren't as viable as the brand expected them to be. Reveal is one of them. I loved Reveal, and that one did really well, you know, on the men's side of things. For me, it did, I meant to say. You know, it had a very unique note breakdown, and I took a liking to it. And then CKB is one of my favorite fragrances of all time, because even though it's this generic musky composition that was released many decades ago, it was my first fragrance ever. I had it when I was 10 years old. So I love the brand of Calvin Klein. I can't say that they are my favorite brand when it comes to fragrances, but they do induce and conjure up a lot of nostalgia within me. This fragrance smells nothing like eternity. Very different note breakdown, but it does have some modern and youthful pleasantries, let's say. And I think that if you try it, I think you'll find it very pleasant. I don't think there's anything special about it, but I think for a summer flanker, it's not too heavy, not too dense on the chocolate or the oak moss or the sandalwood, as one might expect by looking at the note breakdown. It does have some bright, fruity, even a little sweet factors about it. So definitely try it for yourself the next time you're in Macy's. I'm glad I picked it up from a collector's point of view. I don't think it's going to get a lot of play from me, and I don't think I'll be featuring it in any lists anytime soon. But try it for yourself. Scent is subjective. See if you like it. See how it wears on your skin. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, the uniqueness is kind of there. I mean, I made a connection to Polo Red, and there are some other, you know, fruity, sweet fragrances that I could possibly compare this one to. The chocolate, you know, is somewhat noticeable. The herbal characteristics are not too sharp. It's not a smell that I've traditionally associated with the smell of absinthe or wormwood or whatever. So yeah, the uniqueness is there, but it's not a special kind of uniqueness, if that makes sense. Longevity is about 6 hours on my skin. It is a summer flanker from what I'm given to understand. At least that's the impression that I got by looking at, you know, the reflective water here and the sort of, you know, aqua green color on the bottle. In terms of the projection, it was great for the first half hour of application, radiated within an arm's length. It became an elbow's length scent right around hour 4, a skin scent right around hour 6. In terms of the versatility, it is a bit masculine leaning, great for casual scenarios, great for the hotter weather, and I think this one will appeal to somebody who's a little bit younger. In terms of the presentation, I think the name Reflections is pretty cool, but then I also have Reflection for Men, so I think very highly of that fragrance, so maybe just by association I kind of like the name. And you know, I think it works a little better when it comes to Reflection by Amouage, right? I think it has more of like it paints more of an olfactory image, if I can use that phrase. But and the presentation I think is, you know, pretty nice. I think it evokes the fact that it's intended to be a summer fragrance, so, you know, message received. My final verdict on this fragrance is I own maybe 3 dozen fragrances by Calvin Klein, tons of summer flankers. I can't say this is one of my favorites. You know, there's something about it that I think people will resonate with. I think people will end up liking the way that it smells, because it does have a very sort of young, upbeat, youthful, sweet, fun, outgoing, gregarious appeal about it. Just try it for yourself. Why are you watching this review? Smell it for yourself. See if it resonates with you and how it works on your skin. But that was my review of the brand new Calvin Klein Eternity Reflections. If you own or have tried this fragrance, or if you have a favorite Calvin Klein fragrance, leave your comment down below. I'm always curious to hear your thoughts. If you took something of value from this video, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell and give it a thumbs up. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.